Good afternoon. Today I'm going to read part one of the Magician, which is the last portion of the Red Book, which I have not read into the channel. So I'll be reading from the Red Book by C.G. Jung, Reader's Edition, beginning on page 395. And so this segment that I'm going to read today, this is going to be a 7-part reading beginning today. And as soon as I can finish it the next 10 days, I'll read the whole thing, but it's a 70-page segment of the Red Book. So I'm going to do it a bit at a time. I apologize for that. So this is the time when Philemon appears to Dr. Jung. And as many of you know who know something about C.G. Jung, Philemon was a key character in his development, in his psychic development. And so this is an act of imagination that he is conducting. It relates specifically to his own psyche. But anyway, so you should see it in that way. So here we go. The Magician. After a long search, I found the small house in the country, fronted by a large bed of tulips. This is where Philemon, the magician, lives with his wife, Bacchus. Philemon is one of those magicians who has not yet managed to banish old age, but who lives it with dignity, and his wife can only do the same. Their interests seem to have become narrow, even childish. They water their beds of tulips and tell each other about the flowers that have newly appeared, and their days fade into a pale, wavering chiracuso, lit up by the past, only slightly frightened of the darkness of what is to come. Why is Philemon a magician? Does he conjure up immortality for himself, a life beyond? He was probably only a magician by profession, and he now appears to be a pensioned magician who has retired from service. His desirousness and creative drive have expired, and now he enjoys his well-earned rest out of sheer incapacity, like every old man who can do nothing else but plant tulips and water his little garden. The magical rod lies in a cupboard together with the 6th and 7th books of Moses, together with the 6th and 7th books of Moses, and the wisdom of Hermes Trismegistus. Philemon is old and has become somewhat feeble-minded. He still murmurs a few magical spells for the well-being of bewitched cattle in return for some petty cash or a gift for the kitchen, but it is uncertain if these spells are still correct and whether he understands their meaning. It is also clear that it hardly matters what he murmurs, as the cattle might also get well on their own. There goes old Philemon in the garden, bent with a watering can in his shaking hand. Bacchus stands at the kitchen window and looks at him calmly and impassively. She has already seen this image 1,000 times. Somewhat more infirm every time, feebler, seeing it a little less well every time, since her eyesight gradually has become weaker. I stand at the garden gate. They have not noticed the stranger. Philemon, old magician, how are you? I call out to him. He does not hear me, seeming to be stone deaf. I follow him and take his arm. He turns and greets me awkwardly and trembling. He has a white beard and thin white hair and a wrinkled face, and there appears to be something about his face. His eyes are gray and old, and something in them is strange. One would like to say alive. I am well. I am well, stranger, he says, but what are you doing here? I. People tell me that you understand the black art. I am interested in that. Will you tell me about it? Philemon, what should I tell you about? There is nothing to tell. I. Don't be ill natured, old man. I want to learn. Philemon, you are certainly more learned than I. What could I teach you? I. Do not be mean. I certainly don't intend to become your competitor. I'm just curious to know what you are up to and what magic you are performing. Philemon, what do you mean? In the past, I have helped people here and there who have been sick and disadvantaged. I, what exactly did you do? Philemon, well, I did it quite simply with sympathy. I, old man, that word sounds comical and ambiguous. Philemon, how so? I, it could mean that you helped people either by expressing compassion or by superstitious sympathetic means. Philemon, well, surely it would have been both. I, and that's all there was to your magic? Philemon, there was more. I, what was it? Tell me. Philemon, that is none of your business. You are impertinent you are impertinent and meddlesome. I, please don't take my curiosity badly. Recently, I heard something about magic that awakened my interest in this bygone practice, and then I came to you because I heard that you understand the black art. If magic were still taught today at university, I would have studied it there, but the last college of magic was closed long ago. Today, no professor knows anything anymore about magic. So do not be sensitive and miserly, but tell me a bit more about your art. Surely you don't want to take your secrets with you to the grave, do you? Philemon, well, all you will do is laugh anyway, so why should I tell you anything? It would be better if everything were buried with me. It can always be rediscovered later. It will never be lost to humanity since magic is reborn with each and every one of us. I, what do you mean? Do you believe that magic is really inborn in man? Philemon, if I could, I would say yes, of course it is, but you will find this laughable. I, no, this time I will not laugh, because I have often wondered about the fact that all peoples, in all times and in all places, have the same magical customs. As you can see, I have already thought along similar lines. Philemon, what do you make of magic? I, to put it plainly, nothing or very little. It appears to me that magic is one of the vain tools of men inferior to nature. I can detect no other tangible meaning in magic. Philemon, your professors probably also know just as much. I, yes, but what do you know about it? Philemon, I prefer not to say. I, don't be so secretive, old man. Otherwise, I must assume that you know no more than I do. Philemon, take it as you please. I, your answer suggests that you most definitely understand more about it than others. Philemon, comical fellow, how stubborn you are. But what I like about you is that your reason does not deter you. I, that's actually the case. Whenever I want to learn and understand something, I leave my so called reason at home and give whatever it is that I am trying to understand the benefit of the doubt. I have learned this gradually because nowadays the world of science is full of scary examples of the opposite. Philemon, in which case you could do very well for yourself. I hope so. Now let us not stray from magic. Philemon, why are you so determined about learning more about magic if you claim that you have left your reason at home? Or would you not consider consistency part of reason? I do. I see, or rather, it seems as if you are quite an adept sophist who skillfully leads me around the house and back to the door. Philemon, it seems that way to you because you judge everything from the standpoint of your intellect. If you forsake reason for a while, you will also give up consistency. I, that's a difficult test, but if I want to be adept at some point, I suppose I ought to submit to your request. All right, I'm listening. Philemon, what do you want to hear? I, you're not going to draw me out. I'm simply waiting for whatever you are going to say. Philemon, and what if I say nothing? I, well, then I'll withdraw somewhat embarrassed and think that Philemon is at the very least a shrewd fox who definitely would have something to teach me. Philemon, with this, my boy, you have learned something about magic. I, I'll have to chew on this. I must admit that this is somewhat surprising. I had imagined magic as being somewhat different. Philemon, well, this shows you how little you understand about magic and how incorrect your notion of it is. I, if this should be the case, or that's how it is, then I must confess that I approached the problem completely incorrectly. I gather from what you are saying that these matters do not follow ordinary understanding. Philemon, nor does magic. I, but you have not deterred me at all. On the contrary, I'm burning to hear even more. What I know up to now is essentially negative. Philemon, with this, you have recognized a second main point. Above all, you must know that magic is the negative of what one can know. I, that too, my dear Philemon, is a piece of knowledge that is hard to digest and causes me no small pain. The negative of what one can know? I suppose you mean that it cannot be known, don't you? This exhausts my understanding. Philemon, that is the third point that you must note as essential, namely, that there is nothing for you to understand. I, well, I must confess that that is new and strange. So nothing at all about magic can be understood? Philemon, exactly. Magic happens to be precisely everything that eludes comprehension. I, but then how the devil is one to teach and learn magic? Philemon, magic is neither to be taught nor learned. It's foolish that you want to learn magic. Aye, but then magic is nothing but deception. Philemon, watch out. You have started reasoning again. Aye, it's difficult to exist without reason. Philemon, and that is exactly how difficult magic is. Aye, well, in that case, it's hard work. I conclude that it is an inescapable condition for the adept that he completely unlearns his reason. Philemon, I'm afraid that is what it amounts to. Aye, ye gods, this is serious. Philemon, not as serious, not as serious as you think. Reason declines with old age, since it is an essential counterpart of the drives, which are much more intense in youth than in old age. Have you ever seen young magicians? Aye. No, the magician is proverbially old. Philemon, you see, I'm right. Aye. But then the prospects of the adept are bad. He must wait until old age to experience the mysteries of magic. Philemon, if he gives up his reason before then, he can already experience something useful sooner. Aye, that seems to me to be a dangerous experiment. One cannot give up reason without further ado. Philemon, nor can one simply become a magician. I, you laid damnable snares. Philemon, what do you want, such as magic? I, old devil, you make me envious of unreasoning old age. Philemon, well, well, a youth who wants to be an old man, and why? He wants to learn magic and yet dares not to forsake for the sake of his youth. I'll read that again. Well, well, a youth who wants to be an old man, and why? He wants to learn magic and yet dares not to for the sake of his youth. Ay, you spread a terrible net, old trapper. Philemon, perhaps you should still wait a few years with magic until your hair has gone gray and your reason has slackened somewhat. I don't want to listen to your scorn. Stupidly enough, I got caught up in your yarn. I can't make sense of you. Philemon, but stupidity would perhaps be progress on the way to magic. I, incidentally, what on earth do you intend to achieve with your magic? Philemon, I am alive, as you see. I, other old men are too. Philemon, yes, but have you seen how? I, well, admittedly, it was not a pleasant sight. Incidentally, time has left its mark on you, too. Philemon, I know. I, so what gives you the advantage? Philemon, it doesn't exactly meet the eye. I, what kind of advantage doesn't meet the eye? Philemon, I call that magic. I, you're moving in a vicious circle. May the devil get the better of you. Philemon, well, that's another advantage of magic. Not even the devil gets the better of me. You're beginning to understand magic, as I must assume that you have a good aptitude for it. I, thank you, Philemon. That is enough. I feel dizzy. Goodbye. I leave the small garden and walk down the street. People are standing around in groups and glancing at me furtively. I hear them whispering behind my back. Look, there he goes, old Philemon's student. He spoke a long time with the old man. He has learned something. He knows the mysteries. If only I could do what he is able to do now. Be quiet, you damned fools. I want to call out to them, but I cannot, since I do not know whether I have actually learned anything. And because I remain silent, they are even more convinced that I have received the black art from Philemon. Okay, so I'm going to stop at that point for today. I'm on page 403. And I will read a couple of footnotes. There's a couple of long ones at the beginning. And first of all, there's a footnote at the title, The Magician, which says 10th Adventure. And the date is said to be January 27th, 1914. So it's about 7 weeks after the beginning of these active imaginations, which make up the Red Book, and it's still 6 months before the outbreak of World War I. Now, I'll read a text here. Philemon is one of those magicians who has not yet managed to banish old age, but who lives it with dignity, and his wife can only do the same. And the footnote reads, in the Metamorphosis, Ovid tells the tale of Philemon and Bacchus. Jupiter and Mercury wandered disguised as mortals in the hill country of Phrygia. They searched for somewhere to rest, but were barred by 1,000 homes. An old couple finally took them in. The couple had been married in their cottage in their youth, grew old together, and contentedly accepted their poverty. They prepared a meal for their guests. During the meal, the couple saw that the flagon automatically refilled itself as soon as it was emptied. In honor of their guests, the couple offered to kill their sole goose. The goose took refuge with the gods, who said that it should not be killed. Jupiter and Mercury then revealed themselves and told the couple that their neighborhood would be punished, but that they would be spared. They asked the couple to climb the mountain with them. When they reached the top, the couple saw that the country surrounding their cottage had been flooded and only their cottage remained. It had been transformed into a temple with marble columns and a gold roof. The gods asked what the couple would like, and Philemon replied that they would like to be their priests and serve in their shrine, and also that they could die at the same time. Their wish was granted, and as they died, they transformed into trees, side by side. In Goethe's Faust, Part 2, Act 5, a wanderer who had previously been saved by them calls upon Philemon and Bacchus. Faust was in the process of building a city on land reclaimed from the sea. Faust proceeds to tell Mephistopheles that he wants Philemon and Bacchus moved. Mephistopheles and three mighty men go and burn the cottage with Philemon and Bacchus in it. Faust replies that he had only intended to exchange their dwelling. To Eckermann, Goethe recounted that my Philemon and Bacchus had nothing to do with the renowned ancient couple or the tradition connected with them. I gave this couple the names merely to elevate their characters. The persons and relations are similar, and hence the use of the names has a good effect. Then it's dated June 6th, 1831, cited in Goethe, Faust translation, W. Arndt, New York, Norton Critical Edition, 1976, page 428. On joint, and that would be, that's this edition of Faust, just so you know. Okay, this is the Faust to which they are referring specifically, which Edward Edinger particularly liked. On June the 7th, 1955, Jung wrote a letter to Alice Raphael, which refers to Goethe's comments to Eckermann. Ad Philemon and Bacchus, a typical Goethean answer to Eckermann. Try to conceal his vestiges, Philemon. Philema equals kiss, the loving one, the simple old loving couple, close to the earth and aware of the gods, the complete opposite of the Superman Faust, the product of the devil. Incidentally, in my tower at Bollingen is a hidden inscription. Philemon Sacrum, Fausti Penitentia, Philemon Sanctuary, Faust's Repentance. When I first encountered the archetype of the old wise man, he called himself Philemon. In alchemy, pH and B represented the artifacts or vir sapiens and the soror mystica. Zosimo's Theosebia, Nicholas Flamel and Piranel, Mr. South and his daughter in the 19th century, and the pair of the Mutus Liber about 1677, Beneke Library, Yale. On Jung's inscription, see also his letter to Hermann Kaiserling, January 2, 1928, in letters 1, page 49. On January 5th, 1942, Jung wrote to Paul Schmidt, I've taken over Faust as my heritage, and moreover as the advocate of Philemon and Bacchus, who, unlike Faust, the Superman, had the hosts are the hosts of the gods in a ruthless and God-forsaken age. Letters 1, pages 309 and 310. The text reads, why is Philemon a magician? And the footnote reads, in Psychological Types, 1921, in the course of a discussion of Faust, Jung wrote the magician has preserved in himself a trace of primordial paganism. He possesses a nature that is still unaffected by the Christian splitting, which means he has access to the unconscious, which is still pagan, where the opposites still lie in their original naive state, beyond all sinfulness, but if assimilated into conscious life, produce evil and good with the same primordial and consequently demonic force. Therefore, he is a destroyer as well as a savior. This figure is therefore preeminently suited to become the symbol. This figure is therefore preeminently suited to become the symbol carrier for an attempt at unification. Collected Work 6, paragraph 316. The next text the next text that's footnoted reads, the magical rod lies in a cupboard together with the 6th and 7th books of Moses. And the footnote reads, the 6th and 7th books of Moses, i.e. in addition to the 5 contained in the Torah, were published in 1849 by Johann Scheibel, who claimed that they came from ancient Talmudic sources. The work is a compendium of Kabbalistic magical spells, which has been enduringly popular. And then the text reads, and the wisdom of Hermes Trismegistus. The footnote reads, the figure of Hermes Trismegistus was formed through the amalgamation of Hermes with the Egyptian god Thoth, according to the Corpus Hermeticum, a collection of largely alchemical and magical texts dating from the early Christian era, but initially thought to have been much older, was ascribed to him. And finally, she has already seen this image 1,000 times, somewhat more infirm every time, feebler, seeing it a little less well every time since her eyesight gradually has become weaker. And the footnote reads, in Goethe's Faust, Philemon speaks of his declining powers. Quote, older, I could not lend a hand to the building of the dike, as once I did full well, and with my powers ebbing, the waters were pushed back. Okay. I think that's all the footnotes up to that point. Yes. Okay. So that is part 1 of The Magician. And I understand that it may seem a little bit frustrating to you, but nonetheless, that is the first part of this section of the book. There are 6 more parts to this particular chapter, and I will do my best to read one a day or so for the next few days so that we get them all. So thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to reading for you again. I hope you don't mind the light of the sun on my face. Probably got a little weird looking. I wasn't noticing it until just now. So peace. Take care now.